This is Kate Baconsale. You're listening to Baconsale.
We may need some moderation. We may need some vote control. As we badmouth classic rock gods. Don't be mad, leave us alone. Hey, listener, please enjoy the show.
Yeah.
We're just going to stop it there, but I did love the backing. I was like kind of half-hearted.
Yeah, I was in the bass.
Yeah.
Came in. I thought Zack was doing the rhythm.
Hey, everyone, welcome to Baconsale.
I'm Joel.
I'm Kent.
And I'm Zack.
We'd like to thank you, spoiler alert, like to thank you for listening to our spoiler etiquette show that we did last week, where we completely spoiled The Little Mermaid. We apologize to all of you who hadn't listened to Little
Real
hadn't watched
disservice.
Little Mermaid,
Yeah.
and listened to our podcast.
It's better than half the people in the comments that spoiled something.
Oh, yeah.
There was so many spoilers in their comment sections.
I thought the same thing. Like someone dropped something, and I was like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
can we say that?"
There's at least one. I can't remember who it was, but they're like, well, there was this movie that had spoiler, or this movie was spoiler. I'm like, thank you for not just saying what happens in Endgame. But
Calling someone out.
I don't remember. I just remember gifts. Steve Hansen said, I was thinking of your punishments, and nothing seems more appropriate than an impending slap, like in the How I Met Your Mother episode, Slapsgiving. So if you've seen How I Met Your Mother,
alert.
just slap him. Why not?
Okay, because that's like a good kick in the shin, like you were saying, Joel.
But it's more you earn a slap. You don't necessarily get it right then. You just know that one free
It's coming
slap
one
is
day.
coming.
Okay.
Which I
Hey,
think was a
you
great.
spoiled a movie. Here's some assault.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And then the Christy Barbara says, I love every time that Joel yells across a fictional room in this episode. He sounds like Brian Regan.
That's not good.
Kudos
It
to
is.
Kent for
Super annoying.
Kudos to Kent for the law acronym.
Yeah.
That's Bacon Bible, if you ask me. I don't know. Just trying to make that a thing.
Oh.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah. And then there was a couple also, just some comments. Once again, good job on the art, Kent.
Oh, yeah.
The bacon ads were
It's kind of
well
niche,
received.
should we
It
say?
is. Very much so.
Yeah.
If you know it, you know it.
Yeah, if you don't, sorry.
Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about today. What are we talking about today, Zach?
We are delving into the not at all passionate world of 70s classic rock.
We have done 80s new wave,
Yeah.
90s alternative,
Yeah.
2000s rock, and rock
2000
alternative.
alternative.
And whatever alternative was
Your
in the
alt-
2000s,
your
right?
alternative.
Along with the
people,
slew of
we know.
one-hit wonders as well
Yeah.
from those generations.
Yeah.
I think we did hip-hop in the 90s as well.
There was an
One-hit wonders.
R&B.
R&B hip-hop.
Bacon bit?
Bacon bit for one-hit wonders.
And
Yeah.
generally, like, every decade has its mega stars. But now we're tackling the 70s, where
70s rock.
almost every band is considered sacred.
Listener, get your dad. Bring him in the room.
Yeah.
Let him listen to this.
Yeah.
Maybe don't, because we're going to make a lot of dads mad on this
Yeah,
episode.
filter this. Pretend you're Joel.
Sorry,
and you're
dads.
about to show this to his kids.
Now, listener, you may be thinking, why are you guys talking about 70s rock when literally not one of you was born in the 70s?
That's true.
That's a good question.
Because I had older brothers and a father who were very passionate in the classic rock genre. Thank you, by the way, Dad, Spence, Mike, Brent. Not Mike. You didn't listen to the 70s.
And it's not unusual to listen to music that came out before you were born. I think it is now.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it is now. I think young kids these days, get off my lawn, don't really care about culture that preceded them. But I think we saw it, especially like in junior high, high school. A lot of people that maybe considered themselves hipster or wanted to be old school listened to classic rock. They
Yeah.
drove certain vehicles. They blasted this music. They dressed a certain way
It was
to represent this.
It was an era. Like you there was definitely a feel to 70s rock. And
Yes.
it carried on to the 80s. It even carried on to the 90s.
Blacklight posters.
Yeah, you see that Pink Floyd poster kind of everywhere about or Grateful Dead.
Griff-led patches or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And so we actually were very painstaking about our process this time because we couldn't just pick. We had our favorites, of course, but and so we did. First of all, we kind of compiled lists of other people's lists out there, put them all together, had a ton to pick from, and then we whittled it down based on number of hits, based on 70s-ness.
Yes.
And then we also went to our consultants.
Is this the first show where we've each had a consultant?
I think so, because Zach and I both went to our fathers
Yeah.
and passed them the list and then the bracket and said, which we have a bracket.
Were they pretty
Baconsale.com.
passionate about this decade in music?
My dad had definite things to say about this. And like, oh, you got to make sure you include this one. That one's not really rock. Let's kind of put it out there.
Yeah.
And then you had your buddy Griff.
Yeah, my buddy Griff, he is like a junkie for this kind of music. He is the stereotypical classic rock lover, where he was born in 1979, so he didn't really experience it either, but now lives through this music. Jam bands are his jam.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and even to these people we went to, it's very sacred. And yes, there will be some bands we know that are not on this bracket.
Yes.
We're saving them. Don't get mad. We will mention them at a future time.
Because we had to decide, it was a big list, and we had to decide, okay, are they more 80s or 70s? Are they more 60s or more 70s? And so we went through their number of charting hits and said, okay, they had more hits in this era than another
It's
era,
kind of
so
like
let's move them out.
Prominence, maybe not introduction, sometimes introduction, but prominence of fame.
Yes.
Yes.
And influence.
Yeah.
Well, as we always say, with these kind of bracket shows, it's we say it's 33% performance, 33% impact, and 34% personal taste.
And sometimes fighting skills if you're Helga Sinclair.
Exactly. But like as a kid, I grew up listening to both sides, and like I had my older brother. My older brothers had listened to classic rock. My sister lived to 80s new wave, and so I got both worlds. But
a good
I
mix.
Definitely lean more towards 80s new wave.
Yeah.
But I still have my favorites here in the 70s.
Right.
And I do feel like, though, having listened to 70s music almost exclusively for the last couple weeks, I have a new appreciation
Doesn't
for
it make you miss rock and roll? Like, doesn't it make you
kinda
wish
does.
rock and roll existed at this point?
Okay, so I was listening to all these songs with like these intricate guitar riffs and drum solos,
Falsetto.
flutes, like
Yeah.
you're getting all this stuff. And then I got in the car and the radio came on and it was I won't say which one it is, but it was a modern hit. And I listened to it and I'm like, there's nothing to this.
Everything is like balanced. It sounds like normal and routine.
Yeah, it's the same basic, like there's no dynamics.
Yeah.
And then I just felt my sideburns start to grow and I started to smell like hemp.
Did you get a Levi jacket all of a sudden?
It just appeared on
Yeah.
me.
All these patches. What are they doing here?
But that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And so it was just fun to see that and fun to go through this and listen to all these and learn a lot about these bands. In fact, I do have 54 pages of notes.
Whoa.
Mercy.
And for 64 bands, I think that's pretty good. That's not even a page per band.
So that's a lot, though, especially for a show that we're going to try to make as short as we possibly can.
We are. And we have a bracket at baconsale.com. Go there and look for our 70s show. This show, the first part, because we're only going to get through the first round here. And then next week, we will finish up the bracket and declare the ultimate 70s classic rock band.
Yes, we will. All right, ready to go?
Let's do this.
Right,
Let's make some enemies.
Our first matchup will definitely not make us any friends. For our first matchup, we have Pink Floyd.
We don't need no education.
That's your intro.
Wow. Versus Deep Purple.
Smoke on the water.
Wow, this is the first round. How
Yeah.
dare we?
Yeah, geez.
Let's kill a darling. This
It
is
does
horrible.
feel like it because I mean both of these bands definitely had an impact. So Pink Floyd, they're from England. They really are like that. You see that prism with the light going through and the rainbow
Dark
coming
Side
out.
of the Moon all the way.
That is like an iconic picture of
That
70s
is
music.
One of the most iconic album covers.
But then you have
Yeah.
one of the most iconic riffs in Deep Purple.
That's literally every guitar player's first thing they learn.
Yes. And both sold very well. Deep Purple sold over 100 million albums. Even though the band can't agree on the number, they say.
Yeah, well, then you look at Pink Floyd, and they have sold over 250 million albums worldwide. This is a difficult decision, only because both of these bands I have an affinity for. I think there's a clear choice, though.
There's a clear choice. I just feel like this is so sad to get rid of one band in this first round here.
Yeah. Well,
but it's going to happen.
But the thing is also, like, both Pink Floyd and Deep Purple had a presence and had charting hits in the 60s. Also, by the way, at Rock, I think it's Rock Band. They have Hush by Deep Purple, which is so fun to play.
Yeah.
Na, 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 na,
They also,
na, na,
Highway Star is the opening song of Rock Band 2, which brings me to the stat that I will be presenting. I did a weird bit of research. I will tell you the number of songs featured in a Rock Band and Guitar Hero. So Deep Purple had 5 songs featured in the Guitar Hero franchise and 4 songs featured in the Rock Band franchise. Pink Floyd, none in either.
Probably because they won't license their
Yeah,
stuff.
it was a licensing
No,
issue.
mostly because it needs to be a full album of
Yeah.
Guitar Hero. You can't just go for one song.
Exactly.
We should also clarify that when we say rock, it is a broad term. Like we are going to have some country rock and folk rock and progressive rock.
Yes. So I'm going to play my hand here because I feel like one band is going to lose, and it is Deep Purple. So Smoke on the Water, they didn't expect it to be a hit. So I want to give some tribute facts because I feel bad. They didn't
Death
expect
rattle
it to,
facts,
yes.
knowing they're going to die.
Yeah, they didn't think it would be a hit, but it was. And it's actually a true story based on how a Swiss casino burnt down during a Frank Zappa and Mothers of Invention concert. The band watched it burn down from their hotel room. By the way, Frank Zappa will be brought up a lot because he's always kind of around. He's kind of the specter of the 70s.
Yeah, he's like just that background guy.
He's the friend that everyone has stories about.
Yeah. Oh, you know Frank Zappa?
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
Frank
Oh,
Zappa.
Frank. So yeah, Deep Purple is going to be kicked off, I believe.
Even though, Ken, in 1973, the Guinness Book of World Records listed them as the Globe's loudest band for their London Rainbow Theatre at the concert there.
The loudest band.
They said the Globe's
Not the
loudest
best band,
They just
the
said
loudest band.
And Deep Purple, together with Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, have been referred to as the unholy trinity of British hard rock and heavy metal in the early to mid-70s.
That's pretty cool. All these bands are iconic. Like, we can't badmouth any of them.
No, and I'm not going to badmouth Deep Purple because I do think that they're a good band to listen to. Like,
Yeah.
okay, as I was listening to this playlist, there were some where I'm like, just grin and get through it and just listen to this playlist. And then there was these kind of oasis of like, oh, that song. Deep Purple definitely had
For
some
the
of
next
those that I
6
enjoyed.
minutes.
Yeah. That's my definition, by the way. I've said this before on Baconsale. I'll say it again. My definition of 70s music is when people didn't know when to end songs. Because
Literally, so many of these songs just fade out. They couldn't finish them.
our playlist that we made,
Yes.
which you can find at Spotify, and we have it on our website as well, baconsale.com. I think it's like, 7 songs, and it's like, 8 hours.
Yeah. Yes, precisely.
It's much more than that. But
70s music to me is if they can't put a G on the end of their words. So it's like leaving instead of leaving, running,
Smoking.
yeah.
smoking. Yeah.
So, yep.
And also, I want to bring up one last death rattle fact because, yes, Deep Purple's going down. But one of the members of the band, David Coverdale, when he left the band, he started Whitesnake. Came
Oh,
from
there
Deep
we
Purple.
go.
From purple to white. But yeah, I think that Deep Purple's a good band, but they can't hold a candle to Pink Floyd.
There we go. Zach, would you say the same?
Oh, I would have gone with Pink Floyd for sure.
Yeah.
Even though I might like Deep Purple better, but you just can't go against Pink Floyd in this.
Yeah, you can't.
So. All right, Pink Floyd moves on. Now, our next matchup, we have Alice Cooper.
School's out for summer.
Oh, so good. And Patti Smith.
Because the night.
Yeah, you gotta do it.
Because the night
It's way better than that.
It is, but she has this weird kind of a throaty song.
Yeah.
The way she says it, but talented.
Very talented.
Now, I went through a lot of these and I looked strictly at like sales and I could see like, okay, Alice Cooper, he sold over his career 50 million records. Patti Smith is one of those where I'm like, I can't find stats.
Yeah.
You
And
know
like,
why? Because who is this?
But she was around. Like she was
you
songwriting
mean
with a ton of people.
The godmother of punk rock?
What?
Very
Really?
influential.
I literally have never heard of
Everyone
this.
at this time period
Or these songs.
revered Patti Smith.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was actually inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007.
I have that almost like I see. I have the
Yeah.
induction dates of almost all these
Named a
people.
commander of the Ordre des Arts de l'État by France. That's like that to throw it out there.
Yeah, she actually was one of the big sources of inspiration for Michael Stipe of REM.
I would say every female artist in the 80s, she was the inspiration
So,
for.
like, we
And
can thank
90s.
Patti Smith
And
for
90s
Pat
too, yeah.
Benatar.
Shirley Manson from
Yes,
Garbage
totally.
has said that Patti Smith was her inspiration.
Are we giving so many facts because we're voting her out?
Well, I mean, it's
so
against
bad.
Alice Cooper.
Kent, she has 0 songs in Rock Band and or Guitar Hero.
No, that's the thing is like I kept seeing her name pop up like repeatedly in connection to different bands, whether she was either dating someone or helping someone writing a song, or they had like this argument.
She wrote
with
a
each other.
tribute to him, or
Yeah, and so then I was like, wow, she really had a big influence. But she's against Alice Cooper,
Right.
Who I feel like just that look,
His
like, you see
look
face.
is iconic. The teardrop type makeup or whatever he wears. He's so iconic.
Which is funny because he actually modeled that after Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. It's an old campy movie, and like this woman's wearing a lot of eyeliner, and then she's crying, and so she has this crazed look is like dripping down her face, and so Alice Cooper kind of got his persona from that.
Yeah.
So,
But I do think he needs to go forward on this one.
Well, he has 12 songs in Guitar Hero and 8 songs in Rock Band. So, yeah.
I like Zach's voting.
He also had, Alice Cooper had 17 charting hits in the U.S. in the 1970s, whereas Patti Smith, she had 2. So,
yeah.
She's probably awesome. People probably like her, but I mean, I feel like Alice Cooper is like that weird household name that you're like, yeah, I know who that is.
Not nearly as dark as you think he is.
Right.
Though. He's the wolf in sheep's or maybe the sheep in wolf's clothing.
I love it. He's awesome in Wayne's World, and he's just so articulate.
Well, it's his stage show is, and we can talk about this in next show, but it's so theatrical that it seems like, oh, that's demonic. He's like the nicest guy.
Yeah, I've watched interviews with him. He speaks extremely well. Very intelligent man.
Did you guys get this? I mean, Zach, you're a little younger. Maybe you weren't around in the 80s. But were you guys like taught that a lot
Rub
of
it
these,
in, Joel.
Well, that a lot of these 70s bands were like evil, like dark, evil, satanic bands. And you listen to their music now, and you're like, that's cute.
I know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people thought that Elvis was evil, so yeah.
But if you rearrange the letters in Elvis and then remove an S, you get evil.
And it's the sequel to Evil. If you just add
Evils. He's more than one evil.
No one can hear you sing.
So we're saying Alice beats Patty.
Alice Cooper moves on. Now we have Bad Company.
Feel like making lunch.
What? Lunch. Feel like making lunch.
Love.
Like
family friendly.
Making lunch.
Love is not a bad word, Joel. It's a very beautiful word.
Why do you say it is bad?
Versus Ted Nugent.
Cat scratch fever. Deep Purple in there.
Oh, yeah. I get it confused.
So Bad Company, they sold about 20 million albums in the U.S. and 40 million worldwide. Ted Nugent, around 30 million.
Yeah. Ted Nugent, he's not my favorite. I feel like I start growing a mullet anytime the music kind of comes on.
Ted Nugent is the Kid Rock of the 70s.
Totally. That's so terrible. And he's not very well liked now by a lot of people.
He's got some very deep political beliefs. And good for him being passionate, but it just comes off as abrasive.
And I think his music is a little bit abrasive as well.
Oh, it was intended to be so.
Yeah. I do feel like Bad Company kind of has some issues with their lyrics because like there's like no subtlety whatsoever. Like feel like making lunch for the last 3 minutes of that song is just like in your face.
No, but it's the 70s because they were... I'm sorry to say this. I'm going to family friendly myself. They were too high to know when to end the song. That's what I feel like. All these bands... I cannot tell you how many drug references. I thought the 90s had when we did our 90s show, there was a lot of drug references there. The 70s was crazy.
It's kind of why it's the worst to go to karaoke night and pick any song from the 70s because, you know, when you're up there on stage and you're like, really? 4 more minutes of the same line repeated? Can I end the karaoke song?
Yeah,
that's Bad Company.
That happens all the time. I have been a karaoke DJ and people do these songs and like, I like this one part.
For a minute and a half.
I cannot tell you how many times I have like slowly turned off the music and said, yeah, good job, just to get them off the stage.
So, Joel, who are you picking to go forward?
Well, for this one, I'm going to go with the raw data here. So, Bad Company outsold Ted Nugent.
By about 10 million, right?
Yeah, and they also had more charting hits in the 70s than Ted Nugent. I feel like Ted Nugent was a big personality of the 70s, but Cat Scratch Fever is fine, but it is kind of grating. And then the other hits I was listening to, I was just kind of like,
It's a unique style. It stands out because a lot of these bands, I'm like, wait, was that so-and-so or Three Dog Night? You know?
Yeah.
But he was very unique. It's just not my cup of tea.
But I do like how, I don't like it, but Ted Nugent went on to be like a reality TV star.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys remember the TV show Surviving Nugent, where he brought celebrities like Tequila to his ranch.
Definitely a VH1 inspired show.
Totally.
Yeah.
And made him like, build an outhouse or skin a boar or something like that. And it was it was the weirdest thing.
We spent too much time on him.
Yeah. So I'm voting for Bad Company.
He's getting kicked off. Zach, would you agree?
I would go with Bad Company as well. Because obviously there are 3 Bad Company songs in Rock Band, none in Guitar Hero. But actually, no, there's 2 Ted Nugent songs in Guitar Hero, but he's actually like a boss in one of them. That's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah. So he's like
Does he have a bow and arrow?
It chases you around.
Probably. So both of them have a couple of representations in video games.
Good to know.
I'll still go with Bad Company. And now we have America.
I've been on the desert on a horse with no name.
Oh, wait, not nearly as loud.
Yeah, you got to whisper it.
And Kansas.
All we are is dust in the wind.
I'll go with the love, bring it
Dust
down.
in the wind.
Close my eyes.
No, listener, we are not gonna pick a key.
So America, I didn't get the album sales with these guys.
You didn't? They got about 16 million worldwide. If I couldn't find like the easy,
You kind of counted the platinum.
Yeah, platinums are about 1 million, golds are 500,000, and so if I kind of add them up, I can get a rough estimate.
Kansas, I have about 15 million, so really close. So like over 15. So yeah, strangely, Kansas has not sold as much, maybe, as
But
America.
Kansas is from Topeka, Kansas. America is from London. America's not even from America.
Do you know why they chose the name America?
Because they didn't want to sound like...
Well, they saw that the band Chicago was so successful, and they said, Chicago? You know what's bigger than Chicago? America. Truthfully, based on Wikipedia.
I heard it was because they didn't want to think anyone think there were British musicians trying to sound American. They wanted to be accepted by Americans.
Ooh,
That's what I
see.
heard. This is one where America won a Grammy Award for Best New Artist when they came out in 1973. They were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2006 and received a Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2012.
I do think America has good melodies. Like the harmonies are very good here. I would call them the Hillbilly Beach Boys.
I like that, actually. But
'Cause-
like no insult.
Yeah.
But that's actually really true.
Hillbilly
Right.
Beach Boys.
Yeah, it's not like totally white trash, but a little bit hillbilly.
I just, every time I hear America, I think it's Neil Young.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
why. It's that high-pitched, the high voice. I've been on the desert on a horse with no name.
Good call.
Whereas Kansas, I mean, you get Dust the Wind, you get Carry On My Wayward Son.
America did have higher charting albums, but there's nothing more memorable than some of the hits of Kansas for me.
Kansas hits are hard hits.
The thing is, I'm looking at the charting hits, and like Kansas has 17
Yeah.
charting. And when I say charting, I'm talking like
Top
US,
100. Hot
US or
100.
Hot 100, and it's the top 200, actually. I included it.
Oh, is that what you did? Okay.
Basically, if it's on the chart. They had 17, America did, whereas Kansas only had 7.
I feel like Kansas, their songs transport you to a better place.
Yes.
Whether you're driving or just listening in your room, it's a better place. And I do have to vote Kansas ahead of America.
We are going to agree way too much. We have agreed way too much already.
I hope there's not a lot of tension here, because I'd hate to be mad at you over classic rock songs that
It's
I
going to
wasn't born
happen.
for.
Sure.
Yes.
You make me mad on every one of these shows.
But America songs are so chill. That's why they're not featured in either Rock Band or Guitar Hero.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah.
Kansas obviously has one song in Guitar Hero that we've already referenced. Was
Yeah.
it Carry On My
For
Wayward
me,
Son?
I would say it's impact and influence over album sales. Like it's only off by 1 million roundabout,
Yeah.
but I would say Carry On Wayward Son.
I mean,
it's so
if you
much.
click
That's
on,
very
if you,
much 70s.
If you click on the radio to a classic rock station, you are going to hear both of these bands reliably so. But you are going to air guitar along to a Kansas song. You're going to have more fun to a Kansas song than an America song.
Yes.
They're nice, they're chill, they're good listening. But I think Kansas is more fun.
Okay. So we're going with Kansas.
And now we have Styx.
I'm sailing away.
Come
Sail
sail away.
open
Come
course.
sail away. Come sail away with me.
Nice. Versus Steve Miller Band.
Some
'Cause I'm
people
a
call me
joke.
the space cowboy. Some call me the gangster of love.
No, they don't.
Lunch.
Literally, 'cause I'm a
Some call me
joker.
the gangster of lunch, guys.
Nobody calls you that.
'Cause I'm
I
a
promise
joker.
Nobody does.
And I'm a
People call
smoker.
me Maurice.
Wow, we are not 70s singers, guys. So Styx is from Chicago, Illinois. Steve Miller Band is from San
They're
Francisco.
not even from the River Styx.
No.
Ah.
They probably are now because they're probably
but Styx
dead.
gets such hits as Lady, Lorelei, Renegade, Blue Collar Man, Babe. And here's the thing: this is one of the bands where they bleed into the '80s. You get like Mr. Roboto in the '80s, like that. We did our best to try to stay focused on their '70s stuff.
You
but
did.
We can't.
Well, they hit
take-
number 1 in 79, so it is on the cusp.
Yeah.
And so, but I'd still say they hit.
Well, Styx had
prominence
12
there.
hits in the '70s and 12 hits in the '80s, so
Yeah.
it could go either way.
Styx had 2 of their founding members. They were twin brothers, actually.
That's going to take into account.
Yeah, twins scare me.
Steve Miller Band, they sold 24 million in the U.S. alone, whereas Styx sold 54 million records worldwide. I could not get the worldwide for Steve Miller Band, but I'm assuming 24 here, it equates pretty well around the world, right?
I feel like Steve Miller Band deserves to be one-hit wonders. But
Everyone
they had so
knows-
many hits.
But everyone knows that record cover, the Steve Miller
Yeah.
Band greatest hits with like the horse head on it.
Yeah, it sold 13 million albums.
So many.
It's crazy.
I honestly could go either way with this because like
Same.
Steve Miller
Zach,
Band,
you choose first.
Steve Miller
Okay.
Band, you get the Joker, Take the Money, Run, Fly Like an Eagle, Abracadabra, Jet Airliner.
I did-
Keep on a rockin' me, baby.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about how we know songs. Like, honestly, I know so many of these songs from Guitar Hero, which, by the way, Steve Miller Band was featured. 3 of his songs are featured in Guitar Hero to Styx 2. But I only know Fly Like an Eagle from Space Jam.
Oh
And I feel bad about that. Shout out to Space Jam.
no! Never shout out to Space Jam.
I think both are very influential. This is a tough choice. And so I had to kind of lean more into my preference, and I'd have to go Styx.
I'm going to go opposite then. I'm going to go Steve Miller Band because I feel like when I listen to Styx, I do get mixed up of are they an 80s band or are they a 70s band?
And maybe that's why I like them.
Steve Miller Band is 70s.
Yeah.
Even though he had charting hits in 2 charting hits in the 60s, 10 in the 70s, 8 in the 80s, I hear because I'm a joker and I'm a smoker and I'm a midnight
Joker.
talker.
Joker.
I bought that album when I was 14 years old. And listened to that song
Abracadabra.
What rhymes with
repeatedly.
I
abracadabra?
want to reach out and grab you.
Oh, that'll work.
Big old jet
So, Joel, you
airliner.
chose-
Steve Miller Band. That is 70s. That is iconic 70s to me.
Oh, mama, I am sorry to Styx. They are leaving the bracket now.
Oh no.
Okay. That's fine.
Oh,
take
because the
that.
thing is, I thought Styx is a good band, a very good band.
But it's for the exact reasons, because the crossover with the 80s.
Do you know why?
Mr. Roboto kind of kills them.
I kind of it does pull him over there.
Yeah.
You know why I know that song though? That the one you were just singing is because Russ, a friend of mine at Quickwits, he used to use that all the time as his buzzer in a game we would play.
Yeah.
And so like usually have these loud kind of get your attention buzzers, and also like oh mama, here you go. And people loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that song? And so I had to look it up.
I have a really good remix of that song, by the way.
Oh man! By the way, Styx beginning in 1972, Styx was releasing an album a year.
Okay, we need to stop there. The 70s were the best time to be a fan of rock and roll because each of these artists were doing 1 or 2 albums
Yeah,
a
they
year.
really pumped it out.
Whereas
They
like my
were.
favorite artists, they'll be like every 4 or 5 tops.
Keep in mind, most of these 70s bands burned out though, and a lot of them just like completely fell
Or they
apart.
changed members like repeatedly.
They were taking drugs to be able to make that record.
Hey, it's fine. Hey,
No, it's
make
not
it for
fine.
my entertainment.
No,
Take those drugs.
no,
You guys knocked out Styx in the first round.
it had to happen.
All right, Steve Miller Band moves on.
Some people call me Maurice. 'Cause I speak of the pompous.
Now we have the Doobie Brothers.
Roll black water, keep on rolling, Mississippi moon gonna keep on shining on you.
Versus Jefferson Starship.
Phony, you believe.
Did you say foamy, you believe?
You phony.
Phony, you believe? You can fly. Now, Doobie Brothers. Is there a more on the nose name for a 70s rock band
I
than
gotta
the
be honest
Doobie
with
Brothers?
you. I was a little surprised to not see any of their last names be Doobie. I was like, that's a lie. Oh, wait, that makes total sense.
I feel cheated.
And then you get Jefferson Starship, which is an interesting story because that is Jefferson Airplane
It's like a transition band.
that then became Jefferson Starship that then
Before
became Starship.
Who made the greatest song of the 1980s, We Built This City.
Yeah. And nothing's going to stop
I
us
love
now.
how you agreed with that.
Yeah. We built this
Jefferson
city.
Starship, they only sold 10 million albums I could find of, whereas the Doobie Brothers, 48 million.
Yeah, they definitely outperformed them. Doobie Brothers had 19 charting hits in the 70s, whereas Jefferson Starship only had 10, which 10 only had 10. Come on.
Yeah.
Only one band on this entire bracket was featured in the Star Wars Holiday Special, and it was Jefferson Starship.
Oh, that's a good fact.
about?
Oh, nice.
I do feel like Jefferson Starship are good with like slow tunes, but also they can rock out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't sound like either Jefferson Airplane or Starship.
It's weird how that band transitioned and how like people came and went. That's another thing about these bands, all these 70s bands. And maybe it's just you go on long enough, this is what's going to happen. But the rotating members,
Yeah.
like some of these bands literally have a separate Wikipedia page just to list everyone who's been in the band.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Some revolving doors here.
Here's why I'm going to vote no on Jefferson Starship, because the 70s had so much great album art. Jefferson Starship had some of the worst album art ever.
Okay.
It was like early Paint. and it was bad.
Microsoft Paint.
Yes, Microsoft Paint.
Yeah.
So they are getting the no from me.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Kent, because
Oh, my goodness.
Jefferson Starship is one of those bands that I think I prefer Starship.
Or Jefferson Airplane.
Or Jefferson Airplane.
Yes.
But Starship's kind of that middle child that I kind of forget about. Like,
Not the biggest fan of the Doobie Brothers either, though.
What?
Yeah. Sorry.
I do.
Sometimes I'm like, is this Leonard Skinner? I mean, it's good quality songs, but I'm like, is this
I want to
the Doobie
hear
Brothers?
some funky Dixieland. Pretty mama gonna take me by the hand.
Don't you love the one song that's featured in Guitar Hero as opposed to the none for Jefferson Starship?
I can't sing. I apologize, listener.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're knocking Jefferson Starship out?
Yes, we are.
Mississippi moon, won't you keep on shining on?
Next up, we have Boston.
More
than a feeling.
More than a feeling. This is my favorite part of these shows.
I shouldn't even try.
We just let Joel out to dry.
It's falsetto. It's not
should've
supposed
gone
to
with
sound
Amanda.
good.
And then Chicago.
Bum, 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 bum.
If you leave me now,
Taking the very best part of me.
Ooh, no, please don't go.
Oh, man. Okay.
I feel like I just romanced someone listening right now.
These bands are telling the truth.
Yes.
Unlike America, who is from London, Boston is from Boston, Chicago is from Chicago. Both these bands are pretty present in the 70s. Chicago, however, they span 60s through 80s. Probably even now they're making hits like right now. As we're recording
Making
this episode.
hits?
They're making hits right now.
Knock it off.
No, they're definitely not.
Chicago is a fantastic band. One of my favorites on this entire bracket. But are they 70s? And are they
I get what
rock
you're saying.
enough?
Yeah. Because like having Saturday in the Park, which is like a nice, easy song. It's really easy to listen to. I do consider Chicago to kind of be audio ambient a little bit.
A little bit.
They
They're
put me to
very
sleep.
chill.
I can see that. But at the same time,
Not saying they're bad. It's just not my style.
But at the same time, Boston, they're good. I like them. But they don't really scream to me as like big hit makers. They had hits. Like I said, 6 hits in the 70s. But the really one I think of is like More Than a Feeling. And then I was like, oh yeah, Amanda too. I like that one too.
Amanda?
Yeah. I think Boston, one of the great attributes about them is their self-titled debut album. So their debut album sold 17 million copies. And that is huge for a first album back in the day. In fact, it wasn't beat until Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. So it held that record for a long time. Like,
it
that's
did.
huge.
Well, and
also,
also-
they show restraint.
Boston or
Yeah,
Chicago?
Boston, because they have 4-minute songs. Like, that's
Yeah.
great in the 70s.
They really are, I think, pretty radio friendly, honestly.
Well, but you know, actually, the coolest thing I think about Boston is the leader Tom Schultz, who's basically. That's the weird thing about these bands too. Is like even though they continue and everyone rotates, I'm like, well, who really is Boston?
Right.
And I think it is Tom Schultz for this one
A lot of these bands have like 14 members in their entire history.
because he played the majority of the instruments on his debut album. That was him doing almost everything except for like drums. I think he did all the guitars, and then he also worked for. He went to MIT. This band, this 70s rock person, went to MIT, worked for Polaroid, and then funded their studio time by his working at Polaroid until they got big.
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty impressive.
Is that a death rattle fact?
I don't know because the thing about Chicago is, like I said, I really like them, but I think I like 80s Chicago more than 70s Chicago. Because when I think of Chicago, I think of If You See Me Walking By,
Same.
and those tears are in my eyes.
In fact, I feel I like their rock sound more in the 80s than their 70s vibe.
But Chicago, this is one of the biggies, by the way. Chicago had 1 hit in the 60s, 29 charting
Holy
hits in the
cow.
70s, and 17 in the 80s.
wow.
This is a powerhouse. And they're actually
I
originally...
mean, there's a reason they've sold 100 million albums.
Yeah, a ton. They have sold a ton of album. One of the world's best-selling groups of all time.
Then why
But
do they have-
Boston has 75 million.
Yeah.
Why does Chicago have no songs in Guitar Hero then?
Because
Boston has 3.
Because it wouldn't be Guitar Hero music
imagine-
version.
can you
Can you
imagine,
imagine?
playing If You Leave Me Now?
Da, 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 da.
So
now.
I'm throwing my vote out here, and Joel, I do want to apologize, and I feel like it is like the crossover aspect, they feel less 70s. And so I do have to give this to Boston. I feel bad because I know Chicago is a personal favorite.
I'll give it to Chicago then, and then we'll let Zach be the bad guy. Because I feel like Chicago is one of those bands that we're probably not going to put them in the 80s one because they're included here in the 70s one, and they deserve respect.
Great harmonies, for sure.
Yeah, well, and just a great sound. Like, they've had so many hits coming out of them. And then Peter Cetera, even when he left the band and became his own, one-off thing, still made hits.
Yeah.
Like, this is a great band.
Is this bracket called the 70s adult contemporary bracket?
Because that's what it sounds like if Chicago.
Boston.
Oh, wow. Oh,
You're
wow.
knocking out Chicago.
They're not like rock to me.
The first rock act to sell out Carnegie Hall for a week.
Rock.
That's what it says in Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge of truth.
I mean, technically,
They are
yes.
rock.
They are, sure. Technically, very chill rock.
They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Jay-Z was nominated this year. Calm down.
Nominated, not inducted.
I like not being the bad guy.
How can you do that? How can you knock out someone whose band name was based on the Coca-Cola logo? How you have that look of it?
I thought it was Cheers.
Could be that too.
I didn't even know that came out way after.
You just knocked out
That'd be
one of the
Boston.
biggest bands on our bracket, Zach. I hope you know that.
I like Boston better.
Expect hate mail, because if you do want to send hate mail, you actually have to do mail because it's the 70s bracket. If
Yeah,
that's
that's true. That's true. And, personal bias is coming through. I listen to Boston way more. I have their greatest hits album.
How could you not listen to Chicago? They're literally like,
I
there's
got
stations
bored.
out there that's all Chicago
Guys, we have
all
a
the
winner.
time.
We have a winner.
I got
We can
bored.
move on.
I got bored.
All right.
Fine. Boston moves on. And now we have the Sex Pistols.
SEX Pistols.
Yes.
I am an anarchist. That was pretty good, right?
Actually sounded pretty good.
Okay.
And of course, the Ramones.
Hey, oh, let's go. Hey, oh, let's go. Man,
That was fun.
it was fun. The Sex Pistols, as we're calling them, for the family friendliness, for a 70s rock
I
band.
think we put them here because of influence rather than hits, because they didn't have hits.
No, they were big in the UK.
Yeah.
Didn't really make much of a splash over here, like chart-wise in
Right.
the US. No charting hits at all from them.
But they
And
defined an era.
They did. And they sold around 4 million of their one album.
Yeah.
One
Never mind
album.
the Bullocks.
I keep mind. I was going to say I kept track of how many albums each one of these bands made.
Yeah.
By contrast, the Ramones had 14 albums, 3 hits in the 70s, and around 4 million in sales as well. So they have about the same amount of sales, but with more albums.
But Joel, did they cover the Spider-Man theme?
No, they did not.
Because the Ramones did.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So Death Rattle facts for Sex Pistols.
Let's
Let's be honest.
I have no love for them. I will say that right now. I know people respect them for what they did.
invented
And
the
you-
pogo, which is a dance that you still do at punk concerts now,
Yeah.
jumping up and down.
Yeah.
But
Right.
at the same time, and they are very influential in punk. They did kind of, punk
Yeah,
scene
totally.
started with kind of them.
But
But
like Johnny Rotten, Sid Vicious, like this band was troubled from the
Johnny Rotten, you know
start.
why he has that name? Because he had bad breath.
Oh, do you know why Sid Vicious is called Sid Vicious? Because Johnny had a hamster that bit Sid. It wasn't even his name. It was named, the hamster was named Sid. And he goes, your Sid was vicious. And so Johnny Rotten called the other guy.
That's your name.
Sid Vicious.
God. I do think, sure, they made an impact. But I do feel like the Sex Pistols aren't exactly ones that people are still talking about today in America.
I feel like the Ramones is also very influential, but they're like kind of commercialized now.
Yeah.
And I feel like they would hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now
I
you
agree.
know their songs from commercials.
Whereas there's a little bit more of an underground status to the Sex Pistols.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do feel like a lot of people like them. I saw a lot of posters and a lot of shirts with
Yeah.
the Sex Pistols name on it.
But not more shirts than you saw the Ramones.
Or Dead Kennedys. But
Is
we're
it
not
the
doing that.
Ramones or just Ramones? I never know.
The Ramones.
I think it's just Ramones.
Ramones.
Yeah.
But we know him as the... Anyway,
We're knowing them
Facebook.
as the winner of this round.
Yes, we are.
Sex Pistols had 3 songs in Guitar Hero.
Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh, let's go. Aye, oh.
And now we have Queen. That's all you're going to do. Just
Buddy,
press that.
you're a boy, make a big noise. I can do the whole thing if you want me to.
And versus Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
What goes up must come down.
Ride a painted pony, let the spinning wheel fly. Okay.
Queen
If you
versus a
can't-
band that nobody knows.
If you can't tell what the songs are that we're singing, we have a playlist at baconsale.com.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Good
Spotify
mention.
playlist.
Yeah.
You can honestly go there and listen to all these samples. Or at least we gave like 2
Yeah.
for each band.
Also, if you can't tell what songs we're singing, no one knows who Blood, Sweat, and Tears is.
No, but that
They
song.
know that song.
That song.
Yeah.
And they also have "You Make Me So Very Happy."
So I do like that the name Blood, Sweat, and Tears came from when the keyboardist Al Cooper was playing with Jimi Hendrix and B.B. King at a club all night. And when they finally turned the lights on, there was blood all over the keyboard.
Ew.
Yeah.
By the way, also, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they won Album of the Year at the Grammy Awards over the Beatles' Abbey Road.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
But this is going to Queen. Queen moves on.
Yeah. We're getting it back. We're getting the back for you, the Beatles.
They need our help.
Booyah!
Next up is Peter Frampton.
Ooh, baby, I love your way.
Every day.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that was kind of pretty, you guys.
Was that Big Mountain?
Versus Elvis Costello.
Hey, listen. That was less pretty.
My aim is true.
Okay, so Peter Frampton is from Beckingham, Kent, in England, and
bother.
Elvis Costello is from Paddington, in London.
Oh.
Paddington, you say?
Yes, I say that.
I love Paddington 1 and 2.
Me too.
So Peter Frampton, 13 million in sales, about 7 hits in the 70s. Elvis Costello, he had about 8 million sales and 2 hits in the 70s.
So death rattle facts for Elvis Costello.
Oh,
No, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. He gets my hipster award for every decade.
You're just going to bash on Declan Patrick McManus? The
Is
real
that
name
Elvis
of
Costello?
Elvis Costello? That's his real name.
No, I actually like a lot of his music, but it is definitely hipster type. Like, I listen to it all the time. Like, with Griff, we go on road
Yeah.
trips. He's like, here's an Elvis Costello song. I'm like, that's amazing. What's it called again?
Yeah.
Whereas Peter Frampton is iconic mostly because of Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah.
Like, that live album sold so
That's
many
a bit of a
copies.
hit. I actually, my introduction to Peter Frampton as a name was
Yeah.
on The Simpsons. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that. When he was on that, he had the voice box, "Do you feel like I do?" And Homer was like, "You're talking like a robot."
Yeah, because he's got that talking guitar.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you're
Elvis
totally-
Costello, I don't really love his voice, but he sounds so SEXY. You know, like, it's just romantic.
It took me a second.
I like how you guys don't even want to say that even in like an adjective way.
I feel like Elvis Costello for me is the guy I like the most, whose music I know the least. Like, I see imagery.
It's like a Bob Dylan that you don't know the music as much.
He's so cool. Like, Elvis Costello is so cool.
now it's kind of selling me on him, though.
But I don't know any of his music. I could not name a single song.
Allison.
I think his deep cuts are probably better than Peter Frampton's deep cuts.
Probably.
Throwing that
I
out
feel
there.
I feel like Elvis Costello probably had a bigger influence on other artists.
Totally.
He was an artist's artist, whereas Peter Frampton I think was much more accessible.
Yeah, actually, David Lee Roth, he's a bad person to quote,
Yeah.
but said that all critics love Elvis Costello so much because they look like him. He looks like a music critic.
That's true.
And Elvis Costello was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003.
Yeah. But no songs in Guitar Hero. Versus 2 for Peter
Also,
Frampton.
there wouldn't be a Huey Lewis and the News without Elvis Costello because they were his backing band, Clover.
Oh. I still
What
gotta
do we
vote-
do?
I still got to vote for Peter Frampton.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, probably the right choice.
But I feel like we gave a lot of credit to Elvis
just
Costello.
I don't think we gave enough. People are going to be mad.
Courtesy vote for Elvis Costello then for me. Just
Oh,
'cause I think-
sure.
He's cool.
He's
I
got
like him.
to win some people back sometime.
Nobody likes me. Come on. And Peter Frampton moves on.
Ooh, baby, I love your way every day.
Next up is Elton John.
Road. I just turned into Miss Piggy. Don't go breaking my heart.
I couldn't if I tried.
You started singing, and both Kent and I were just like, huh,
I don't know.
what's happening?
Maybe I don't like Elton John.
I should have led with "Goodbye, Yellow Brick Road."
How's your voice?
Hold me closer, Tony Danza.
Exactly. Who's he up against?
Versus, how do you say his name? Crochet. Jim Crochet.
Bad Leroy Brown, baddest man in the whole downtown.
Thanks, Joel.
Badder than an old King Kong, meaner than a junk dog.
The world is a worse place without Jim Croce. It is. He was such an amazing guitarist, songwriter. Time in a Bottle is such a beautiful song. It's one of my favorite songs
It's a
in
great
this
song.
bracket.
But
Where's the but?
I didn't know this. But that song went back up the charts again after he died.
Oh, of course, like every artist.
I didn't know that he tragically died at like the height of his career, and then he had an album released just after he died, and like all these songs.
Did you read
charted.
about his history and his family?
Yes.
And his wife that got left behind and his kids?
Yes.
Such a tragic life.
It made me so sad. And then I was listening to Time in a Bottle as I was reading it. So you better believe I cried.
And then didn't it
it's-
go up the charts again after that X-Men movie?
Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
His songs are so clean sounding, so well crafted. I actually prefer to listen to Jim Croce over Elton John.
Blasphemy.
I don't think so at all. I think Elton John has quantity and there's quality there too. His songs are so fun.
They're so good. But that's the problem is you get Reginald Kenneth Dwight, which is Elton John's real name.
Yes.
And then you get Jim Croce, that's his real name. But Elton John spans, like you get 27 hits in the 70s and 20 in the 80s.
Yes.
Also, you have hits in the 90s. He probably has
Huge
hits
hit in the
2000s.
90s.
Well, yeah, with you, Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
And Candle
Candle in the Wind.
Candle in the Wind.
Yeah,
The Wind
England's
came out
Rose.
again, right?
Yeah. So he has, Elton John has sold over 300 million records. He is one of the best-selling music artists of all time.
If I grew up in the 70s, I wouldn't have liked Elton John.
No.
Because he was so popular.
And he's so goofy.
So goofy.
It's like
yeah.
the stage presence was just
So,
crazy.
So I made this comment earlier, but I mean, is Elton John rock? Or is he like pop?
Depends
There's a ton
on
of
the
rock
song.
there. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like you get something like Crocodile Rock, and you feel like you're back in the 50s. Like, you know what I mean?
That's the thing. It's
But Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting.
so much.
Saturday.
That's true.
Saturday.
That's true. That's a great song.
But the question I guess we have to ask ourselves is, who feels more 70s rock?
I think I'm giving the potential vote to Jim because I feel like he is more 70s.
But you can't knock out Elton John.
I will put this on Joel then because I love Elton John, and I
Okay.
will say Elton John.
I'm going Jim.
You didn't put that on me because I voted for Elton
Are you
John.
sure?
Or you did.
No, you said
you were the one that did it.
Fine,
Because
then I'll
I
do
said
it.
you can't vote out Elton
No,
John.
look, it's the right choice to make as far as legendary status goes. But I feel like if Jim Croce were had still lived beyond the 70s as a songwriter, he would have impacted music even more.
Well, and I was going to say his death was one of those tragic ones, airplane crash, where it was like he was just flying somewhere and then the plane crashed. He
And
was
I'm
gone.
biased because my mom used to teach guitar and she'd play a lot of Jim songs.
Unfortunately,
So, yeah.
no songs in Guitar Hero.
I do want to give a fact about Jim Croce before we let him go.
Yeah.
Because there's a story where when he got married, his in-laws gave him a wedding gift of $500, which was so he could make his album and produce it and then get that dream out of his head so he could move on with his life.
wow.
But it ended up selling every single copy of his album. Like he was a success because
Yeah.
of that. I thought it was a fun little thing for him.
I feel like based on what you're saying that I want to know his music better.
You should.
I don't.
Yeah.
And how
In
can
fact,
you, and
give it
how
a
can
chance.
you
It's beautiful.
Yeah. How can you avoid Elton John's music?
Yeah, you can't.
You know, that's the thing. Like,
I mean, he's still
I saw
playing it, and
the
he shouldn't.
movie Rocket Man and didn't realize I knew every single song in the movie.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's tough for me to say anything other.
Yeah.
Elton John moves on.
All the clothes are tiny dancer. Count the headlights.
Now we have Cheap Trick
I want you to want me.
versus Kiss.
I
Wanna rock and roll all night and party every day. Joel, I have to say up front, I really am upset with you for this matchup.
Because you like both Cheap Trick
I
and
am.
Kiss.
These are two of my top bands. I grew up with them. My dad's a huge Kiss fan. My dad's a huge Cheap Trick fan. This hurts.
I'm
This
sorry.
hurts.
You know, I did show you the bracket beforehand and ask if you wanted to make any changes. You remember that, right?
I
You
do.
did.
I do. And, we
and
left
you
it.
got hurt back then and let it happen.
I will leave it.
Cheap
You-
Trick would be such a they both be so fun to see in concert. Cheap Trick feels like such a cool party band. They were
Yeah.
like the LMFA of their time.
Their
basically.
album Live at Budokan, it's like one of the best live albums
Budokan?
of all time.
Yeah, I want
No,
to go
that's
to
the fun thing.
Budokan.
So Cheap Trick kept trying, like they got, kind of minimal success and they were about kind of done, honestly. And then they recorded this live album in Japan, and the people loved them in Japan. And so they went there and recorded this live thing there, and it was supposed to just be for Japanese people. But then America got a hold of the album, and all of a sudden they became a huge success because of that concert in Japan.
And it was almost like the laugh track on a sitcom where like people heard them having fun.
right.
And we're
It-
like,
because
we
it feels
must like them too.
unrehearsed.
Well, because they're like, I did not see you crying. And you hear the crowd go, crying.
It feels more 80s. Cheap Trick.
Maybe
Actually,
that's-
more of their hits
maybe that's why I
were
like
in the
them.
80s.
Maybe that's why I like them.
Well, and my problem here is that I really like Cheap Trick.
I like Cheap Trick more than Kiss.
One of
who
my
overshadows their music.
One of my favorite songs of all time is Cheap Trick's cover of "Don't Be Cruel" by Elvis.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it. Like, that was one of my first musical memories of like, I love this song.
But
that's
Surrender.
80s. Surrender's one of those ones I really didn't get to know until Rock Band. So
Yeah, maybe because it was one of the easier songs.
They also sing the theme song to that 70s show.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did read that.
Cheap Trick has 5 songs on Guitar Hero.
Yeah, so we have 19 studio albums from Cheap Trick. We have 20 studio albums from Kiss, so they're right around the same. 5 hits, and here's the thing: Cheap Trick had 5 hits in the 70s and 9 in the 80s.
Okay.
Whereas Kiss had 15 in the 70s and 10 in the 80s.
Lots of dirty titles in there. And we're not really going to mention them.
Yeah,
No, we
Detroit
won't.
Rock City. Ew.
Rocks are the worst. Kiss, I know the name of all 4 original members.
Do you?
Yes.
Go.
Gene Simmons.
Yes.
Paul Stanley.
Yes.
Peter Criss.
Yes.
And Ace Frehley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
I was
Didn't you
looking
look at my
I was-
notes?
I was checking you.
I didn't need to.
Although, hold on. Starman. The Cats.
Catman or whatever.
Now,
Nope.
name one band member of Cheap Trick without looking at your notes.
Nope.
Nope.
One of them's named Robin.
Sure.
I know that. Hold on, I'm looking now.
This is just painful, but it's the choice here is Kiss. They're enormous.
Okay,
I think they're super
presence,
tacky.
Their live presence, though, changed concerts.
They did. Now, what I was going to say is Cheap Trick, I felt changed with the times. Like they became a more 80s band in
Yeah.
the 80s. I feel like Kiss was a 70s band and has continued to be a 70s band even when they got into the 80s.
Every farewell tour is still the 70s.
Every so many farewell tours.
And I debated on whether to keep Cheap Trick on this one or the other one, but with Surrender and I Want You to Want Me, like those were very
Really
much
fun songs.
70s songs.
Yeah.
And they did. They had multiple hits in each decade, but
But did they have 10 songs in Guitar Hero?
I can't get enough.
For me, the choice is Kiss. I love them both, but I have to go with Kiss. They're too important to live performing music. All right, Kiss moves on. And now we have Emerson, Lake, and Palmer.
Ooh, lucky man. Yes, he was. You're beautiful.
Versus Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
teach your children well. Your father's heck. Sometimes we wonder if we go too family friendly.
I don't think it's our opinions that discredit us. I think it's our singing of these songs.
Totally, yes.
Yeah.
So the law firm of Emerson, Lake and Palmer formed in 1970.
It's a super group.
It just feels like a law firm name.
ELP.
That's just pretentious. By the way, there was a running gag in the 70s where there's a popular joke that says, how do you spell pretentious? ELP.
Oh.
People didn't think they were that great. They were kind of snobbish and their music was snobbish.
That song, Lucky Man, is 4.5 minutes. It feels like it's 40 minutes.
Yeah. Emerson, Lake and Palmer has an estimated 48 million records sold worldwide.
ton.
Whereas Crosby, Stills, and Nash, combining both. Well, okay, so you have Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young.
Yes.
Yeah, I
includes
thought
Neil
they
Young.
were a 60s band.
Well, they had two charting hits
Jump
in
back
the
and
60s. They had 7 in the 70s, but they have a
Jump
combined.
back and forth between the 60s and the 70s.
Yes, they did.
It's a lot of drugs. It can
LSD
make you
is
travel
crazy,
in
man.
time.
So in between the sales of the quartet, the trio, the duo, and the solo of Crosby, Stills, and Nash incarnations,
Yeah.
they've sold over 70 million.
You'd have to be a time traveler to sell this many albums, I think. Yeah,
I'll go first on this one because
It's easy.
Well, I don't know. Is it easy?
It's easy.
Because Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young is like my dad loves the harmonies on that, so we got that played a lot. He prefers Crosby, Stills, and Nash to Crosby, Stills, Nash and
Same,
Young.
same.
And so, but he played him around the house. The song "Teach Your Children" really does remind me of my dad. He used to play that
Really?
on his guitar. So I've got to vote for Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young because it feels much more like paternal almost.
Yes. In Our House is such a great song.
Yeah. Although it was also used in a cookie commercial.
Was it?
I think for Toll House Cookies, if I remember right.
Oh, but yeah.
I have association with Toll House Cookies and Our House.
For me, it's
a very, very
CSN
great
takes over ELP. So I think they're going ahead.
Yeah, even though that Nintendo's first game composer cited ELP as a major influence on his work, and Nobuo Uematsu has said that ELP was his source of influence for Final Fantasy.
Because he scored Final Fantasy 1 through 10, I believe. Oh, no.
You just voted him out. Kent hates Final Fantasy.
No, I don't. I love it. It made me cry.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young goes on.
Sorry, Final Fantasy.
Teach your children well. Their father.
And our next matchup is the Grateful Dead.
Hey guys, let's just jam.
Why is this dueling banjos all of a sudden?
I'm sure they had bands.
20 minutes later.
Versus Judas Priest. Breaking the law, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law.
Can we just vote them both out? Oh, I'm so sorry.
How dare
Judas
you?
Priest.
How dare you? Don't use that as an expletive.
Do you understand what Judas Priest has done to the leather industry?
I believe it.
Grateful Dead from San Francisco, Judas Priest from Birmingham, England. Grateful Dead had such hits as Uncle John's Band, Truckin', One More Saturday Night, Dancing in the Streets, Good Lovin'. It's weird though because like they had this huge influence in late 60s, early 70s. But I really know them from like after Jerry Garcia had his like heart attack and then had the recovery and the I Will Get By.
Yeah.
I loved that song and I was
It's a
like,
good
oh
one.
yeah, Grateful Dead, they're cool.
It's more a style thing. It's more a concert thing. In fact, they've never been all that successful with album sales. Just the fact that they have 9,000 albums, but it's more their concerts.
9,000. They have 13 studio albums.
Yeah, but their live albums as well. They sell.
Well, so they let a thing where they said, oh yeah, if you want to record the album, go ahead.
Right.
Excuse me, if you want to record the concert, go ahead. They had recording sections where you could just, because people were like breathing their microphones and tapes everywhere, and they're like, no, you have to be behind this thing, and it became a whole thing where they're like, yeah, just record it, whatever, dude, whatever, man.
It's funny that Judas Priest is what I felt like, what I always picture Black Sabbath to sound like, even because I think Black Sabbath has a much cleaner sound than Judas Priest.
Yeah.
But they are definitely heavy metal that I never cared for and still don't.
But the thing is, they definitely have that kind of metal sound where it's
They
like
do.
they're like, I'm growling down here, and all of a sudden, like when I had our playlist on, like I had our sampler playlist on, and the songs were on random, and it was kind of like, yeah, kind of jamming in the background, bob my head, and that came on, and I stopped, and just kind of my eyes went wide, like I feel like I'm being possessed right now.
Yeah.
My notes for Judas Priest are those sirens real or is it in the music? I'm scared.
But I do think Judas Priest definitely they definitely have a fan base. But
Legacy, though.
They didn't have any charting hits in the 70s. One charting hit in the 80s in the US.
Yeah, but
they
they
were
had
bigger in the UK.
They had 6 songs on Guitar Hero. None for Grateful Dead.
But yeah, I'm
long
going to
tracks.
vote just for influence alone. Like
Yeah.
the name Grateful Dead just feels
And the
it
fan
feels
base.
60s. Actually, feels like
It feels so 60s. That's why I'm going to go
But then
with
also
Judas Priest.
I think feels more 80s. So I'm going to say Grateful Dead.
As am I.
What?
Zach, are you disagreeing?
Yeah, Judas Priest all the way. Grateful Dead moves on.
Like a Duda man once told me, you got to play your hand.
Now we have David Bowie.
Changes. Time to face the change. Changes. And if you mention Shrek, I will punch you right now.
I won't.
So I really like it in Shrek.
No!
Versus Wings.
Live and let die.
Bow.
Live and let die. So David Bowie, obviously, he's a household name.
Yeah.
David Bowie.
Bowie's in space.
And then Wings is led by Paul McCartney from the
A
Beatles.
household name.
Yeah. And Wings is like his next, after he left the Beatles, he went to Wings.
And there are some really good Wings songs that you might not even know is Wings.
Oh, I'll tell you what's a great Wings song.
Yeah.
The best Christmas song of all time.
Not a Wings song.
Womp, 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 womp.
That's a solo song. Thank you very much.
It's he sang it with Wings.
I was
I will say Wings, Wonderful Christmas Time.
It's Paul McCartney.
Well, I was going to vote them ahead, but now I'm not going to. Thanks
Good.
a lot, Joel.
This is big band.
It's not, because Wings had so much turnover in their band. One guitarist left, and he said Wings was never a real band. Like he's saying, Paul McCartney had us there to kind of just play instruments,
Yeah.
and that's about it. It's like the Beatles off.
But at the same time, they had 7 albums from 1971 to 1981, 21 charting hits in the 70s.
It's true. They sold 35 million albums, and David Bowie sold 150.
But
Million.
he also had David Bowie had 1 hit in the 60s, 11 hits in the 70s, and 14 in the 80s.
I feel
David
like-
Bowie's one of those spanning ones.
But
Because he's
he,
iconic.
Where Wings only exists pretty much in the 70s.
but David Bowie has different versions of himself that exist throughout time.
He does. Like
David Bowie created the 1970s. I feel like his style...
I think time did that.
His style, the time travel, I feel like his style just defined the era in many ways. He changed music.
He did well. I mean, he was Ziggy Stardust in in the early 70s. Became the Thin White Duke in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Like these personas that definitely encapsulated that. Wings is one of those that I was surprised by how many songs I knew by Wings. I really was.
Totally. I'm right there with you.
Do you like it how it takes 3 minutes to get into Band on the Run for that song to get good?
Cat on the rug.
Is that your own Weird Al version?
My nieces. That was my
that's
nieces.
cute.
She thought it was Cat on the rug.
Both bands, or I guess both acts here, have 4 songs in Guitar Hero.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which
But-
way you going, Kent?
Oh, I already chose.
David Bowie.
Bowie.
Joel?
This is not easy for me.
Yeah, it should be.
Because David Bowie does from early 80s to me. Like Modern Love and Labyrinth. That's my David
Modern
Bowie
Love,
era.
Fame.
Fame. That was 70s.
What was that, 70s?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Fame. I'm gonna live.
Nope.
It's not him.
Famous 70s, it hit number 1.
Oh, awesome.
This is difficult for me. Because Wings is more 70s.
I guess,
But I like David
80s
Bowie
Bowie
more.
would probably be China Girl, right?
Yeah, China Girl.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go with strictly by charting hits in the 70s, so I'm going to say Wings, Kent. I'm going to go opposite you.
So they
Down
end
to
themselves.
So you're going to give me Shrek versus James Bond?
Zach, no, seriously.
Yes.
Zach, before
Shrek,
you make a...
one's in Shrek. The other's in
He's
a
not-
James Bond movie. Obviously,
A
I'm
70s
going to
James
go
Bond
with
movie.
Shrek.
A 70s James Bond movie.
You scared me so bad because I know your Bond love.
Love Bowie. Love Bowie.
Good,
But
okay.
this is so hard, though, because I think Wings is a great act. So many good songs. But you talk about like the transcendence and the impact.
Yeah.
Bowie just has that over Wings.
He looks 70s.
Exactly.
And I do agree with that. I'm sad, but
It's a close one. But
yeah. Well, and people did say that Wings was basically Paul McCartney's band, and everyone else was just
Right,
lesser in it.
and that's how I feel.
And that was the whole with Paul McCartney famously getting arrested in Japan for having a little bit of weeds,
Time
in his
traveling
bag.
substances.
Yes,
Sure.
he got busted for that, and that was essentially the end of Wings. Like it was this public
Really?
scandal, and this whole thing. Their concert got canceled in Japan, and they had to go back home. And he was in jail for a couple of days, and they really never recovered from that. And it was already on shaky ground. I think
Sure.
that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But
Interesting.
Fly away, Wings, fly away.
now we have T-Rex
Bang a gong, bang a gong, get it on.
versus Aerosmith.
Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. My throat hurts.
I gave up immediately, and it was the right move.
That's why Steven Tyler sounds like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
My throat is dead.
Everyone's favorite aunt, Steven Tyler.
So T-Rex, if you haven't heard of them, they did have 12 studio albums and 5 charting hits in the 70s with sales around 3 million.
They got the Hall of Fame of Rock and Roll in 2020. Bad year, but a great band. These guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
T-Rex?
Yeah, T-Rex. In fact, their initial success was second only to the Beatles, but then it declined after their third album. So right from the get-go, huge.
Awesome.
And then not as much.
I did not know their name going into this, but I knew their songs. It was the weirdest thing.
But like Cosmic Dancer to me feels like the perfect like 2000s coming. No, but it's like a coming of age movie song.
Yeah.
It's perfect for that.
But the other band is Aerosmith, so Aerosmith has got to be the vote.
They have to be because they had 12 charting hits in the 70s alone.
And an entire Guitar Hero game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their own ride.
And they have a Disney World ride.
And a video
Aerosmith
game.
goes on.
Yeah. They made
T-Rex
such an
is less
impact.
annoing.
I
don't
went through
know.
an Aerosmith phase, but I got to agree.
I'm
Yeah.
in an Aerosmith phase. I vote them so hard.
Sorry.
So you're wearing so many scarves right now.
I feel
exactly.
bad. I feel bad making T-Rex extinct again.
So we've made it through the first half of the bracket. So much like the 70s music, this is going long.
This is our
We don't know when to end.
It's our extended play episode.
We are going to hit it on the second end of the bracket. If you've ever listened to Baconsale before, we usually go a lot faster in the second half. All right, now we have Led Zeppelin.
Hey, mama said the way you move, gotta make you sweat, gotta make you move.
Versus Thin Lizzy.
The boys are back in town, boys are back in town. Bam, bam.
Death Rattle Facts for Thin Lizzy.
Just like that.
They
From
sold,
Dublin, Ireland.
They sold almost 2 million albums. Maybe. Formed in 1969, they were a big inspiration for Metallica and Alice in Chains. They kind of feel like a one-hit wonder to me.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, they had their Whiskey in the Jar, which was like a traditional Irish ballad that they played a lot in Ireland. But they did have 7 charting hits in the 70s. The one thing I liked about their name is they actually got it. There was a character named Tin Lizzy from
'Cause that's how they pronounce their own band name, right?
Yeah, well, there's a comic over there, and they said they kind of made fun of the Irish saying tin, like, he's a little bit tin.
Yeah,
so
Tin
they
Lizzy.
did Thin Lizzy.
I like that.
Yeah, so there you go. Sorry, Thin Lizzy, but yeah,
Real sorry.
Wait a minute, but
It's
Thin
Led
Lizzy had
Zeppelin.
3 songs in Guitar Hero, and Led Zeppelin's had none due to licensing rights.
yeah.
It's Led Zeppelin; they're bigger than big. Like, obviously, Led Zeppelin goes on.
Hey, hey, mama said the way you move gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove.
Now we have Santana.
Oye, como va? Peligro.
Contigo.
I don't know what it says.
Versus Three Dog Night.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
Ba-da-ba.
Was a good friend of mine.
Ba-da-ba.
Now, a lot of you are saying, wait a minute, but Santana was popular in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Thanks, Rob
and
Thomas.
60s as well.
That was his resurgence with Smooth, with Rob Thomas. That was his comeback.
Yo, I love that song.
But you get like Black
do.
Magic Woman. Black Magic Woman is one of those smooth 70s songs.
Yeah. Also a cover of a Fleetwood Mac song.
Yeah.
I like Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
We'll get to them. And then Three Dog Night. Oh, man. What can I say about Three Dog Night? Their songs bring me joy. I don't know what it is about them, but when I listen to Old Fashioned Love Song, just an old fashioned love song.
It's so familiar.
Mama told me not to come. And Shambhala was, I remember what the van starting up in Lost had Shambhala kick in.
Yeah.
And I was like, Three Dog Night.
I feel like the effect, the influence for guitarists from Santana is huge. Instrumental.
Yeah.
Because he was so talented.
Guitar instrumental.
Oh, it was a mistake. But he does feel removed from the classic rock genre itself. And I feel wrong saying that, but compared to Three Dog Night, to me, they're just going forward. And I hate to do it because he's iconic.
He's one of the greatest guitar players ever.
Yeah. Decade spanning.
But
And I was going to say, he sold 100 million albums, whereas Three
Wow.
Dog Night, we're looking at 50 million. But, charting hits. Okay, this makes me feel better about my decision. Charting hits, Santana had 11. Santana had 11 in the 70s. Three Dog Night had 17 in hits in the 70s. I'm going to go with Three Dog Night as well.
pity vote to Santana.
That's good.
It's a good
we
choice.
should give a pity vote. to
I
Santana.
like
Feels
Santana.
like you're protecting yourself a little bit.
And we're
but it's a
not
good
just
choice.
voting on Santana.
I like his music better.
We're not just voting on Santana because Smooth was the most overplayed song ever.
It was.
But
I was like 10 when it came out. Of course, I like it.
it's good.
Leave me alone.
And I was gone when it came out, so I liked it when I came back. But I heard it was annoying.
Hated it.
Of course, you did.
It's popular.
All right, Three Dog Night moves on.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine.
And now we have Lou Reed.
Say, hey, babe, take a walk on the wild side.
Versus Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Taking care of business. Wake me up.
You just woke me up with that.
Yeah, how about that?
Okay, so Lou Reed is from New York. Bachman Turner Overdrive is from Manitoba, Canada.
Hey,
There needs to be a movie about Lou Reed.
Really?
His life story is insane.
It's insane. He received electroshock therapy, like
From
as
his
a
parents.
teen.
Well,
Yeah.
not from his parents. They decided to
They
give
took
him
him to a place.
Hey, son, come in the living room.
Don't laugh about it. And then also, I mean, he had all these sort of issues where he was in ROTC but got kicked out.
He was in a doo-wop band growing up.
Yeah, and he's had such a weird childhood. And then even the song "Take a Walk on the Wild Side," I'm going to say something here.
Sure.
Did not realize what that song was saying.
Yeah.
like you get that chorus of do
Well-
do do do, and that beautiful guitar.
It's so, yeah, I mean, as far as content goes, a little bit strange. It's weird because you think he'd be this hard edge guy, and I think lyrically he told the stories. His songs are actually really slow and pretty.
They are.
Like Perfect Day is, I could listen to that every single
That's a
day.
beautiful one too, but it makes you fall asleep.
Does it? Oh, I love it.
But yeah, I was going to say Walk on the Wild Side was one we had on our playlist, and I kind of removed it because I was like, I don't think I felt covered. That's not family friendly. Bachman Turner Overdrive, BTO, man. You get, oh man, so many good songs here. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And they had 13 hits in the 70s, and they sold nearly 30 million albums worldwide. I really enjoy Bachman Turner Overdrive, so I got to give it to them.
Well, I'm going to give it to Lou Reed because he was inducted into the Hall of Fame for rock and roll by Patti Smith in 2015. He's inspired Pearl Jam, The Killers, Morrissey, Lenny Kravitz, alternative music itself. Bachman Turner Overdrive kind of feels like a joke band. The fun music, but very, very short span of time. Lou Reed lasts, and his influence lasts.
Did he though? Because like Lou Reed's one of those names that's not really thrown around. You get
Oh,
BTO
totally. For people that like care for this time, Bachman Turner Overdrive is one of Randy Bachman's bands with cool party songs. Lou Reed is Satellite of Love. Zach, you're gonna have to decide.
Kent, you do know that Stephen King is a huge fan of Bachman Turner Overdrive to the point where he used his alias as Richard Bachman.
Yeah.
He was listening to them at the time.
That's when he
And you
wrote.
like Stephen
That's
King.
when he wrote the Langoliers, and that's a bad story. Lou Reed.
No, you got to do Bachman Turner Overdrive. You got to do BTO.
Hey, I'm not choosing it. It's Zach here.
Yeah. I know Bachman Turner Overdrive songs. I don't know Lou Reed songs.
Thank you.
So I'm like the everyman. I hear these things. Like I'm 2 decades removed from the 70s.
And you still know
Let's
BTO.
call
songs.
the
And I
guy
still
who
know-
made it into the Hall of Fame. Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Oh, come on.
You can't.
Jay-Z made it into the Hall of Fame.
He got
Kent.
nominated.
He will.
Let's
this
not
year.
talk about
He
it,
will
as
this
Zach
year.
said.
You know it. All right.
Velvet Underground. You're discounting the guy who started the Velvet Underground.
We'll save our Velvet Underground show.
That's in the 60s.
What is that?
One of the most influential alternative rock bands. You just got
Move it, guys,
skewered.
faster,
Skewered by the audience
Kidding,
right
I'm
now.
kidding. I know.
And you still are voting him out?
Bachman Turner Overdrive. BTO moves on.
And I've been taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way.
Now we have Blue Oyster Cult.
I got a fever, and the only cure is more cowbell.
It's good.
And Electric Light Orchestra.
Yellow.
Mr. Blue Sky,
Mr. Blue Sky.
please tell us why you let to hide away for so long. So where did we go wrong?
Wow, we went really wrong.
Yeah, it was bad. I was going to go with Don't Bring Me Down. I love that one. So Blue Oyster Cult, they had 2 charting hits in the 70s, sales over 24 million records. ELO, you got 18 hits in the 70s and 50 million records.
Most of the band members of Blue Oyster Cult were rather short in stature, generally about 5'6".
Why are you sharing that
That's a
fact?
death rattle fact for Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, you can't
Their
get...
song is incredibly popular because, well, it's a
Will
good song.
Ferrell.
It's a good
It's a great
song. But because of the resurgence and the skit, which will never be forgotten.
But it was in Halloween as well. Don't Fear the Reaper was in Halloween, the original Halloween. A lot of people do it from there too. But yeah, the older generation, our generation, probably really started loving it after the SNL skit.
Yes.
Oh, this is hard because I really like Burnin' for You as well too. I'm burning for you. And
I don't like the lyrics, I'm burning for you. And it was so redundant too. I'm burning for you.
But it's
I
not-
just feel like...
they're not. You're more lyrics in that regard, but like I think the music. It's about the music here. It's the feel.
But
of
it's
the
so
music.
redundant too. It's just the same riff again and again and again.
I love ELO, but I do feel like I like their 80s stuff a lot versus their 70s stuff. They had 10 hits in the 80s. I'm gonna go for Blue Oyster Cult.
Okay, I'm going ELO.
Back to me again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach, I'm going to try to sell you on ELO.
Okay.
Not only did they have twice the album
Oh, you
sells.
don't need to. I'll pick them, but go ahead.
Okay, good. It's not there.
Okay, so I'll tell you why. So I pulled up just a random list of 70s music when I was prepping for this show. And every time I went, hey, I like this song. Who is it? ELO. Oh, I like this one too. ELO. I think they have some variety. I really like their music. Blue Oyster Cult feels like that, like Don't Fear the Reaper, right? Their most popular song. I only like part of it. Like it goes
Yeah.
on
First minute and a half.
on and on.
I think it's epic.
That keeps going.
I hated it in the game Guitar Hero, where 4 of their songs were featured.
Oh, but I do feel like I want to bring this up as a death rattle fact, I guess, for Blue Oyster Cult. Their name came from a 1960s poem by their manager, and he said the Blue Oyster Cult was a group of aliens who had assembled secretly to guide Earth's history.
Sounds like the 70s.
And they put an umlaut above the O just to seem fancy. And then everyone started copying them, like Motley Crue and Motorhead and Queen's Right. They're all like, yeah, and Spinal Tap.
Okay, that's some influence.
Yeah.
Spinal
Umlauts.
Tap. Yeah.
Fine.
Electric Light Orchestra moves on.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long.
Now we have Leonard Skinner.
Sweet Home Alabama.
What key was that?
I don't know.
Roll Tide
Whoa,
Roll.
key
all of a
was
sudden
that?
I get the wrong key and it didn't call me
I was
out.
going to start up here. Sweet Home Al. You got to get up in your nose.
Versus the Moody Blues.
Nights in white satin.
60 song right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
in your wild.
That's an 80s song.
crap. What's the 70s song?
If you can't even name one, this is easy.
Ah!
But they
Yeah.
did sell 70 million albums.
And the other band's Leonard Skinner.
Moody Blues feels like a mom band to me.
I'm just looking at these songs now. These song titles of
Like,
Go
they're
Now-
pretty. They're
Go
very
Now,
pretty
Tuesday
songs.
Afternoon, Question, Gemini Dream, The Voice. I know them for
Question,
their 80s
yeah,
and
Story in Your
60s.
Eyes.
I don't know them for their 70s as much. Actually, they had 8 in the 60s, 7 in the 70s, and 8 in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So 8, 7, 8. So they
Oh.
could have gone in any one of these eras.
Sure.
This was not their strongest one.
Let's
though.
knock them out in the 70s.
Leonard Skinner moves on.
That was fast.
Now we have Eric Clapton.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.
Versus Frank Zappa.
Doesn't matter. I'm voting for Clapton.
But Frank Zappa's the buddy
I'm
that you
voting
always
for
wanted to
Clapton.
have. He's the one that introduced you to friends at parties.
Look, his song titles include "Don't Eat the Yellow Snow" and "I'm the Slime."
I wrote "Don't Eat Yellow Snow" in people's yearbooks all the time. Okay,
By the way,
very influential.
Frank Zappa, he was active from 1955 to 1993, and he had 113 studio albums.
Wow.
More than any other band on here.
I can't recall the song, but I really like hearing Uncle Remus, the song, even though it's like the title's ridiculous. Frank Zappa is super talented, but I know him more by reputation than I do by music.
Yeah, a lot of people liked him. But he named his children Moon Unit, Dweezil, Amit, and Diva Muffin.
I'm a diva muffin.
I listened to Frank Zappa's
But he's like
music.
a satirical rocker as well.
He is like
yeah.
some people call him like the godfather of comedy rock, which I respect that. I
Weird Al
understand
fans,
that.
yes.
But at the same time, I did not like any of his songs, and as I read about him, I was not a big fan of him.
Yeah. It's the 70s.
It is, but like, well, I mean, he's the one who his fans started a fire and they wrote "Smoke on the Water" because of it. That was
Yeah.
the Frank Zappa concert. Also, during that, I think it was that same one at one of his concerts. He was playing an encore, and audience members came up on the stage, and one of them was jealous that his girlfriend liked Frank Zappa so much. Like, you know, she obviously had a crush on this star, so he pushed Frank Zappa into an orchestra pit.
Whoa.
And almost killed him. Yeah, kind of crazy.
He should get the vote just because of that.
No, I'm not going to give him a sympathy vote just because of that.
It's Eric Clapton, man.
It's Eric Clapton,
I know,
one of the
I'm
greatest guitarists
joking.
of all time.
We'll talk more about him next round. Eric Clapton moves on.
Sorry, Frank.
I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.
And now we have Rod Stewart.
If you want my body and you think I'm sexy,
Come on, baby, let me
There it is.
Hang it solo.
Versus Nazareth.
Love hurts.
Love strong. I forgot the next
Smart.
song. No.
Smart. Swanson.
This is why we don't have a band. This is why we don't have a band.
Nazareth feels like they would have one of those album covers, like their name would be spelled in those toenail clippings, you know, like all those heavy metal bands. But it's such a light band.
No, do you know where they got their name from? They got their name.
Nazareth, I mean, I can't
No,
thoughts.
I could get their name from Nazareth, Pennsylvania.
What?
Yes, which is cited in the first line of the band's classic song, "The Weight." I pulled into Nazareth, was feeling how
They're Scottish, though.
Into Nazareth.
They're
was
Scottish.
Feeling about half past dead.
That's where they got their name from.
Love that song.
Nothing to do with biblical stuff.
Okay.
Kind of takes the hair off the dog, doesn't it?
Their other hit, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nazareth is gone.
I like the song "Love Hurts," but
I always thought of it as an 80s song,
yeah.
but yeah.
well, I think you're thinking
Probably
of
in a lot of
Love
80s
Stinks
music.
by Jay Gillespie is what I think you're thinking of.
No.
But Rod Stewart is one that definitely, I mean, he had a presence in the 80s. He had 21 hits in the 70s and 21 hits in the 80s,
Wow.
charting hits. Rod Stewart is one of the biggest powerhouses out there in music, and he was a 70s presence. So, yeah, I take Rod Stewart wins.
Same.
Rod Stewart moves on. Now we have Van Morrison.
I can't do this. Wow. It's
Wow.
a very high nasal
It's like a
voice,
lot of
too.
scatting. It
Moon
sounds
dance.
like
Did you let the Minions in? Or versus Fleetwood Mac.
you can go your own way.
Go your own way. Wow. The harmonies, guys, our harmonies are so
I
tight.
backed out of that one.
Okay, so Van Morrison from Belfast, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and 41 studio albums. He had 10 charting hits in the 70s, 50 million in album sales.
Wow.
And then you got over here Fleetwood Mac. They had 18 studio albums, 9 hits in the 70s, 120 million records rolled.
Van Morrison fans are known as Vanatics or Van fans. And they boast about how many concerts they've attended or how many tapes or records they have of his.
Like Rush.
Van Morrison has been known in the past for bad eating habits, but recently he's making efforts to keep healthy.
Good for him.
He doesn't like crusts on sandwiches anymore.
The thing about Van Morrison
Man
is like,
up, eat a crust.
the thing about Van Morrison is I was like, oh, Brown Eyed Girl, and that was more of a 60s. We are taking that into account.
Yeah.
But when it comes to more 70s bands, Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah, no
one of my
question
favorite
about it.
bands on
Moon
here.
Dance. I like the song, but he sounds like a cheap Vegas crooner a little bit. Maybe cheap is the wrong word, but he sounds like a Vegas crooner. Domino sounds like a Motown song, so it seems like he's trying to find a genre. But yeah, so it's Fleetwood Mac for the win.
Van Morrison doesn't even have a song on Guitar Hero. Fleetwood Mac has one, though.
Good for him.
Just one.
Just one, right? Fleetwood Mac moves on.
You can go your own way.
Now we have Black Sabbath.
Sharon! I am Iron Man.
I am Iron Man.
Industry. What?
Wow, I'm so sorry, listener.
We apologize.
Yeah. Versus Yes.
I seen how good people turn their heads inside, so satisfied. I'm on my way.
So high.
I don't like Black Sabbath. I don't
don't
really
either.
enjoy Ozzy Osbourne's music as much.
Whereas I like Yes.
And I do feel like it's more 80s. It feels 80s to me more than 70s, at least Ozzy Osbourne stuff.
So does Yes.
But I
Yeah.
like Yes. And Yes definitely has a hit in the 80s with Owner of a Lonely Heart.
Zach, could you actually tell me what Yes songs are, though? Like, do you actually know Yes songs?
On the Road, I think it's called.
That's on Rock Band.
I don't know it from Rock Band. I know it from memes. But Yes was hugely influential on Rush, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
I was going to say Black Sabbath had 2 charting hits in the 70s. Yes had 4 charting hits in the 70s. Black Sabbath obviously is the bigger band here.
I like Yes better, but I gotta vote Black Sabbath. It's Black Sabbath.
They sold 70 million compared to Yes's 14 million. Joel, who are you going with?
I'm going with Yes.
I'm going Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I think I like Yes better, but
Roundabout is 8 minutes and 30 seconds. That's longer than Stairway to Heaven.
But it's
Roundabout's so good. That's what I was singing.
Roundabout's a good
but
one.
it's the same beat.
Fine. Black Sabbath goes on. Now it's James Taylor.
How sweet it is to be loved by you.
Oh man.
Tell me, baby.
Thanks for what?
He's riffing.
Why is everybody James Blunt? And Jethro Tull.
Dun, 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 dun. Hey, Aqualung.
Sitting on a park bench. I love that intro.
It's great. Which one of them is Jethro?
Yeah, I actually used to wonder that when people in junior high would wear Jethro Tull t-shirts. I'm like,
Who's that?
Is that why are there multiple?
They're named after the 18th century agriculturalist, you guys. Okay. Actually, so funny story about that. Jethro Tull, when they first started, they had trouble getting gigs, and so they would change their name periodically to things like Navy Blue, Ian Henderson's Bag of Nails, Candy Colored Rain, so they could get a gig again at the same place.
Huh.
And then they did Jethro Tull one time, and then they ended up saying, oh, we like you, we'll come back. And so I said, oh, that's the lucky name. We'll go with that one.
Wow.
Jethro Tull.
I really like the lead singer. I wish I knew his name at this point, but it sounds like he's singing into the microphone. He's not just in the corner of a room kind of just blaring on. Like, he has a very distinct voice, and I love it. But I'm not voting for Jethro Tull to go forward.
They play the flute. They're the only flute playing.
Oh, I feel bad now.
But James Taylor, classic rock?
It's classic everything. I think at this point, I mean, it is more mellow.
It's so mellow. There's
Okay.
even like orchestral, like
So,
a cappella songs.
Growing up, I thought James Taylor was like this nice old man dad type guy.
Yeah.
Holy cow, no.
No.
Go on.
Lots of drugs.
So many.
Lots and lots of drugs happening here in his life.
Yep.
Okay.
But then, he sang with the Utah Tabernacle Choir. And,
Oh, so redeemed.
and- yeah.
So classic rock doesn't just mean electric guitar. Acoustic guitars are such a big part of classic rock. The ballads are such a big part. And who writes better ballads than this guy? So yeah, I vote for James Taylor.
I'm voting for Jethro Tull because I feel like.
Why do you do this to me?
I feel like.
Why do you make the child pick the 70s songs?
I just feel like if you hear that jazz flute, the in the middle of a song, you're like, oh, I'm in the 70s. Because no other era has decided they want to have a flute in the middle of their rock song. And it works. It does. I don't know why, but it does. And it's funny to me because he actually started playing the flute because he was frustrated with his inability to play guitar and as good as like, Eric Clapton or something like that. And so he thought that he wanted to do something different that makes him stand out from this. So he took up flute, and it works.
Zach, if you want help, you can go with science. Jethro Tull has won 1 Grammy compared to James Taylor's 5. He's in the Hall of Fame. Also, he is in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's a national treasure. His voice is like sugar sometimes.
Zach, he presents you with logic. I'll present you with emotion. Rush's Geddy Lee. Have you heard of him? I got your attention. Hey.
Don't do this.
He said about Jethro Tull, I was a massive Tull fan from the very young, and I hope that too reflects in Rush. I was mesmerized by Ian Anderson. His presentation was simply magical, and he delivered with such sense of humor and great style. We of Rush saw it as a huge challenge to try and create something that can seem so dynamic on stage.
100 million records versus 60 million records.
But Rush.
6 hits in the 70s.
Is Rush in the bracket?
14.
No.
Who left him out?
saving it for the
Zach,
80s
who left him out?
Joel?
We're saving them for the 80s bracket.
Obviously so influential, they're not even in this bracket.
I don't know a single Jethro Tull song, whereas I know lots of James Taylor songs, so I'll say James Taylor.
Okay,
You've
so you
got
hate
a
Rush.
friend.
James Taylor moves on.
How sweet it is to be loved by you. Feel so
Now we have Neil Young
Always searching for a heart of gold.
versus Supertramp.
Goodbye, stranger. It's been nice. Goodbye, Toby. Goodbye, Toby. Goodbye, Toby. I started singing that when it was playing, and I'm like,
me
oh,
too.
it's sad.
I was just thinking about The Office.
Okay, so Neil Young from Toronto, Canada. Supertramp from London, England. Neil Young has 40 studio albums. Supertramp has 11 studio albums. 6 charting hits for Supertramp.
Which one's
in the
Canadian?
70s. Neil Young.
Neil Young goes on.
And then 12 charting hits for Neil Young in the 70s.
Zach did get rid of Lou Reed, so I'm sure he'll get rid of Neil Young as well.
I'm
And so
I'm already voting for Neil Young.
Are you really?
Yeah.
So there's respect for Neil Young.
Yeah.
Over Supertramp. They were huge in Canada. They're not from Canada, but they were huge in Canada.
And Neil
that's
Young wasn't?
consideration.
By the way, Supertramp, they originally dubbed themselves Daddy. That was their name. Ew.
Really?
And then they changed the name because they wanted to avoid similarity with another band called Daddy Longlegs. So they changed the name to Supertramp.
The Logical song is such a good song.
I like Breakfast in America.
Oh, that's a good one as well.
Take a look at my girlfriend.
Oh, man.
Ba-ba-da-ba.
I like more songs, and I say this just because I'm not as versed in Neil Young. I think he's more influential.
little bit.
But I like more songs from
Give a little
Supertramp.
bit. Which one's more 70s, though? That's the question here.
Heart of Gold is so 70s.
Always searching for
And it hit number 1 for that kind of song.
gold. Who are you voting for, Kent?
Who are you voting for?
I'm voting for Supertramp. Only because
finally. Put it on Kent.
I think Neil Young is a fantastic songwriter. I think he's one of the greatest ones out there.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, I don't know, just reading about him and his life, I wasn't as impressed with him. And then Supertramp, I know more songs of theirs, and they
Same.
feel more 70s.
I agree.
But you can't knock out Neil Young.
Yeah, his name is sacred among lovers of the music of this decade.
And he dated Daryl Hannah. Neil Young did.
Still is, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It feels like blasphemy to take him out in the first round, and I won't take out
Okay, I was
Neil
going to
Young.
say, but.
No, he goes forward.
Okay. Neil Young moves on.
that keeps me searching for a heart of gold.
Now we have the Guess Who.
American woman.
No.
No sugar tonight in my coffee. No sugar tonight in my tea.
This became a whole different mashup.
Yeah.
And the Allman Brothers.
Oh, I'm a rambling man.
What was that? Oh,
No,
na, na,
na,
na.
na.
Oh, na, na, na.
Don't worry about lyrics, Joel.
Lord, I was born a rambling man.
Born or na.
Can I confess something?
Yeah.
I didn't find out until 2 days ago that they were not the Almond Brothers. I literally typed it on a bracket.
I thought the Doobies weren't a drug reference. Okay. So I'm right there with you.
And I love almonds.
That's nuts.
So
Sorry. The Guess Who? Canadian rock band formed in 1965. So I feel like American Woman feels
that's
a little
kind
bit.
of funny.
That American Women are so much different from
What
Canadian
about,
Women, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would have the same punch if it was Canadian Woman.
Well, here's the thing. Like, it's funny because you think of
She's so nice.
If it was a British band singing American Woman, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But Canadian did feel like kind of like, Really?
Yeah.
Is there that big of a difference?
She lives down the street.
By the way, I love the story of how the Guess Who got their name, because their name was actually Chad Allen and the Reflections. And then
There's a better
Such a
options out
Canadian
there.
band.
No, but the label wanted to, like, this is the whole during the British invasion. And so they wanted to create this kind of mystery over who it is. So they released the song as single as by the Guess Who, like, guess who it's going to be.
Yeah, this is some Abbott and Costello stuff right here.
I know, but then as disc jockeys played it, they kept calling it's from the Guess Who. And then they revealed it like, hey, everyone, it's Chad Allen. Actually, they were the Chad Allen Expressions at this point. They're like, it's Chad Allen and the Expressions. And they're like, yeah, we're still going to call him the Guess Who. So the band had to change their name to the Guess Who.
Okay.
Because everyone was just calling him that.
You can't do that when the Who already exists. But Randy Bachman also played guitar and vocals for the Guess Who. So, I mean, Bachman Turner Overdrive and this band. I like the crossover there. Mm-hmm. Allman Brothers, they are more like jam band, right? Like we've talked a little bit about Grateful Dead, but these guys, I think their songs are far more coherent, and the talent is with the guitar is incredible.
But they jam forever.
They jam
They're
forever.
one of those bands
But
just like,
no,
just
just
keep
think-
playing. Just keep playing.
But it's like their fan base would listen to one song the entire concert and be happy. They are stoked to hear them jam because it's just musicality just coming out. Hall of Fame in 1995. They've won a Grammy and the Grammy for Lifetime Achievement as well.
For me, the Guess Who have never really spoken to me. I like the guitar work in the Allman Brothers a ton. And there's a couple of songs that I just totally love from them. So I'm actually going to go with the Allman Brothers.
Joel?
The thing is, like, the Guess Who was one of the ones where I was surprised by how many songs, like, I was like, oh, yeah, that one.
Same, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that one. Clap for the Wolfman. I was like, oh, yeah, that one. But the Allman Brothers just feel more 70s to me, so I'm going to have to go with the Allman Brothers
Same.
as well.
Yeah.
Clean sweep.
Allman Brothers Band.
Now we have Jackson Brown.
Running on empty, running dry.
And Steely Dan.
Are you really the years?
Wow.
No wonder these were hits.
Yeah.
The
clearly.
problem is they always do these amazing harmonies in 70s music, and I always try to hit the high note, which is stupid because I'm a baritone. I'm a bass baritone.
It feels like you're trying to prove it to us.
Okay.
He's fun, though. He's fun.
So Jackson Brown was once roommates with Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers, not the Almond Brothers, before they got famous.
Which almond was it?
Greg.
Jackson Brown, he had 15 studio albums, 8 hits in the 70s, 18 million albums sold in the U.S. You get Steely Dan, 9 albums, 14 hits in the 70s, and over 40 million albums worldwide. So Steely Dan definitely has the upper end on performance.
Steely Dan more sings in a lot of these big hits. Like he's kind of almost like old white guy rapping a little bit.
Like I say he as if it's one person.
Yeah, that's so
It's a
true.
band.
Which one is Steely Dan?
Dan, it's Dan. Because there's like Steely John and Steely Jeremiah. Anyways,
Hello, I'm Steely Daniel. How did it?
but it's more just like talk singing, and then all of a sudden they bring in some Chicago for the hook. Right? Like
Steely Dan is one of the most fascinating bands to me because it started by these guys, Walter Becker and Donald Fagen.
Steely Walter. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I was going to say, they wanted to be a studio-only band. They hated touring.
Really?
So like in
You can't do that in the
1974.
70s.
In 1974, they said, we're not touring anymore. We're only recording in the studio. And he had a lot of band members got frustrated and left. But he had stage fright. He didn't want to be on stage. And so they were a studio-only band, which I think is really unique.
Uniquely bad for the 70s, though, because usually artists made their career on tour. This is tough because I feel like Jackson Brown feels or sounds 80s to me rather than 70s.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
He had 9 hits in the 80s and 8 in the 70s.
Like I would never listen to Jackson Brown to like rock out.
Was Jackson Brown a country singer?
Sounds like it.
I mean, that name.
Jackson Brown. He actually did. He joined the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band for a while.
I'm gonna have to go for Steely Dan on this one, just based on science and facts.
But Jackson Brown did date Daryl Hannah for a while.
I'm not actually a big fan of Daryl Hannah.
And it's just like, there was two prominent people who dated Daryl Hannah in here.
Whistling on a podcast.
Yeah.
So good. Everybody loves that. What about you, Joel?
I'm going to go for Jackson Brown.
Whoa.
I'm just looking at the songs here, and I'm like, a lot of these, like the Run on Empty, of course, Doctor My Eyes, like these songs just kind of took me back to a time I didn't live in. Steely Dan kind of does that too, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time.
Yeah.
I could go either way, but I'm going to vote Jackson Brown just to make Zack that guy.
Well, none of his songs are featured in Guitar Hero. However, 4 of Steely Dan's are Steely Joel, Steely Kent. It's Steely Dan.
Thanks, Steely Zack.
Are you reeling in the years? Stowing away the time.
Okay, we have Funkadelic now.
I can't think of any of their songs right now.
And Grand Funk Railroad.
We're an American band.
band.
Are we in a funk off?
This is funky.
Joel, is that allowed?
I paired them together for that reason. It's
Indeed.
Funkadelic and Grand Funk Railroad. Now, the thing about Funkadelic is there was a band called Parliament, which
Yes.
was also ran. It basically the same band. It was like Funkadelic and Parliament were basically the same band, but one was more kind of straightforward funk, and the other one was more kind of experimental. And I have to say, having listened, they did chart. They had 7 hits, 7 charting hits in the 70s, and sold around 2 million albums. But I'm just not a fan of Funkadelic. George Clinton's a talented artist,
Yeah, pretty iconic.
and he was kind of leading both of these bands. But the more I listened to Funkadelic, the less I liked him. And then I listened to Grand Funk Railroad, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, I like these songs.
Yeah.
So
And they are Homer Simpson's favorite band.
really,
Yeah.
Grand Funk Railroad is.
Yes, he says so in the episode when he joins the traveling music festival Hullapalooza.
So Grand Funk Railroad for you, Kent? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll vote for them too. Sure, why not? Grand Funk Railroad moves on. Now we have Foghat.
Slow ride.
Take it easy.
Versus Bob Seger.
I like that old time rock and roll.
Oh,
That
man.
kind of music just
Finally, we can bring our voices down a little.
Joel, don't get in your underwear. Come on, stop.
I got my slidey socks on.
Your slidey socks?
Yeah. If I hear that song,
You want to slide.
you'll honestly. I was walking through a Walmart the other night, listening to this playlist actually, and Old Time Rock and Roll came on, and I wanted to start dancing in the Walmart aisles.
Tom Cruise in Risky Business, by the way, if you didn't know.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
yeah,
what reference
exactly.
we're making there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just yell, Joel, jump in your underwear. People have no idea what you're talking about.
Did you see how many albums Foghat sold? I couldn't find the number.
Around 6 million
Okay.
is what I was getting there. They had 9 charting hits in the 70s versus Bob Seger, who had 14 charting hits in the 70s.
and 75 million albums
Can
sold.
you clarify, though, where does the Silver Bullet Band come in? This is kind of like
in
a
between, I believe.
Starship Jefferson.
No, it's part of it. Basically, Bob Seger
mostly
is
Bob
the
Seger,
constant.
yeah.
It's mostly.
But then you get kind of
Okay.
like the Silver Bullet Band joined him, and yeah.
Okay.
So, oh, man, Bob Seger.
I'm
is
putting my vote
great.
out there. Bob Seger for sure. Night Moves feels like such great like night driving music.
Yeah.
Everything about it is really good. I mean, the 70s are great.
But Bob Seger, I'm going to do counterpoint
Yeah.
here. Bob Seger had more hits in the 80s than he did in the 70s. He also had 4 hits in the 60s, but I'm going to say that he feels more 80s rock and roll to me. Maybe it is because
I think it's because Risky Business was released in the 80s,
But then
it's a
you also
70s song.
get Shakedown from Beverly Hills Cop and Like a Rock from all those Chevy commercials.
That's more 90s.
It pulled him into the other eras, whereas I feel like Foghat is stuck in the 70s.
Bob Seger helped write Heartache Tonight for the Eagles.
I know.
Yeah.
I know
that's
this.
super 70s.
Oh, it is. But that's the Eagles, not Bob Seger.
He also made it into the Hall of Fame 2004, Songwriters Hall of Fame 2012. He has a day named after him. Also, he can run a mile in 5
has a
minutes and
day
5
named
seconds.
after him?
Yes.
Seger's Day.
Bob Seger Day. Probably.
When is that?
Steely Robert Seger Day.
Steely
Everything's
Robert.
stealing the 70s.
5 minute, 5 second mile in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
But Joel,
Foghat, 8 gold records, 1 platinum, 1 double platinum record.
Yeah, that's nice. It's not 75 million albums. That's 6.
so you're going with Foghat?
I'll go with Foghat because Slow Ride, that's 70s.
It's such a-
Slow
yeah,
Ride
it's
is
such
an
a cool
awesome
riff.
song, but Bob Seger, man.
Bob Seger's great.
It's got to go to Bob Seger.
Foghat is really fun to play on, or Slow Ride is really
Slow
fun
Ride
to
is
play
awesome on Guitar Hero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop, bro.
Especially it's like, bow, down, bow, down,
Yeah.
bow.
Bob Seger has 5 songs on various Guitar Hero games, though. So Bob Seger wins. And now, gentlemen, we finally made it. We're actually going to end this thing, unlike a 70s song. We're going to end round 1. This is our final
after a guitar
matchup.
solo, then we'll end it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what. Our final matchup is Uriah Heep versus the Eagles.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
Really got really funky there.
Okay, so Uriah Heep, I just want to let you know that they're from London, England. They had 24 studio albums. They had 3 charting
Did
hits
you
in
do
the
this on
70s,
purpose? Or were you
and they
like,
sold
I need
over
some
45
fodder for
million.
the Eagles?
Well, okay, so Uriah Heep was one of those that did have they have worldwide influence, not big in America.
45 million albums.
They're huge in Germany. Yeah, they sold 45 million worldwide, probably mostly in Germany. And this is one of those ones where they started out as a band called Hogwash. and then they called themselves Spice, and then they changed their name to a well-known character from David Copperfield, Uriah Heep. Because, everyone remembers Uriah Heep.
I feel really bad for this band because they're very accident prone. So the lead singer, Mick Box, he fell off the stage once in concert and he broke 4 bones in his arms. And he actually had to perform the rest of the tour like in a cast and painkillers, and it was really bad. And also in another show, Gary Thane was electrocuted on stage.
Wow.
Poor Uriah Heep, especially because they're going against the Eagles and losing immediately.
Yeah, there's really no reason to discuss this.
Because really this is Kent's signature band, the Eagles. Why? Because of their awesome hit, Take It Easy.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.
The Eagles definitely move on.
Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place. Such a
2 hours later.
Oh, well, it's extended play, like we said. But let us know if you agree. Print out the brackets. You can at baconsale.com. You can also see, if you don't know the bands, we have a sampler platter of hits there as well on our Spotify playlist. But then you can play along and let us know if you agree with our decisions on 70s classic rock, or if your dad agrees with our decisions on 70s classic rock, or if your grandpa, depending how old you are and listening. Let us know.
All right, but before we leave, we'd like to thank our patrons. So from the I Am the Listener category, we have Lady Terry Ann Finley of Wigtonshire, Sweet Bottom Cakes, Jessica Drought, Sean Sandquist, Just Plain Old Kyler, Jennifer Kilkowski, Braden Winterton, Babs, Alicia Bass, Adrian Gray, Glow Clendaniel, Plot Twist Media, Adam, and Rachel Crump. And from our Bacon Council, we have Nicole D. Hale, a.k.a. Hailstorm. Go Knights, go! Chris Anderson, Ryan and Gnarly Farron, Stephen Ross, Mats, Her Royal Highness Jessica Terry, our favorite couple, the Madsons, The Shadow, and Reverse Listener. Patrons,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for listening and staying this long.
Yeah, you are the reason we keep doing what we're doing. Thank you for supporting us. But if you want to find me, you can find me at 76Joel on Twitter, or you can find me performing the Quick Wits. They're performing online for free on Facebook. For more details, go to qwcomedy.com or go to the Quick Wits Facebook page.
If you want to find me on Twitter or Instagram, it's at Kenny3DD. If you want to read my movie reviews, at ShowtimeShowdown.com.
If you'd like to connect with me, you can do so on Instagram and Twitter at Tumbling Mustard. But more importantly, make sure on social media that you're following Baconsale. Like that Facebook page and follow at Baconsale on Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to wear some Baconsale merch, you can get set up at tpublic.com/Baconsale, where you can get yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie or jacket. And then if you'd like to support the show even further, you can go to patreon.com/Baconsale, where support starts at just $3 a month. You can get some fun additional content, some bonus reviews, some weekly-ish bacon bits, and other fun content over there. Patreon.com/Baconsale.
So until next time, 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 until next time.
We're going to make a lot of dads mad on this episode.
Filter.
Hi, my name is.
Bachman turned overdrive.
I want to make love. Love is not a bad word, Joel. It's a very beautiful
When
word.
you say it is bad.
Yeah, that's a little disrespectful, but all right.
I can't keep that.
You can't keep that. That's a behind the scenes, folks.
Yeah, that's for you, Mr.
I wish I could use that.
Ted
on.
Nugent is the Kid Rock of the 70s.
No, listener, we are not gonna pick a key.
Can't we have another Stacy's mom moment?
That just happened.
It was natural.
You know what's bigger than Chicago? America. Some call me the gangster of love.
No, they don't.
Lunch.
'Cause I'm a
Some call me
joker.
the gangster of lunch, guys.
Nobody calls you that.
Because
Twins scare me.
Shout out to Space Jam.
no, never shout out to Space Jam.
Oh no.
Okay. That's fine.
Hey, it's fine. Hey,
No, it's
make
not
it for
fine.
my entertainment.
No.
Take those drugs.
No.
What a fool believes. Please don't go. I feel like I just romanced someone.
So
listening right now.
These-
I like not being the bad guy.
We're getting the back for you, the Beatles. Yeah,
No, we
Detroit
won't.
Rock City. Ew.
But did they have 10 songs in Guitar Hero? Jump
Combined-
back and forth between the 60s and the 70s?
Yes, they did.
It's a lot of drugs. It can
LSD's
make you travel
crazy,
in
man.
time.
Don't use that as an expletive.
Do you understand what Judas Priest has done to the leather industry?
I'm growling down here, and all of a sudden, And if you mention Shrek, I will punch you right now.
I won't.
So I really like it in Shrek.
No! Wait a minute. But Santana was popular in the late 90s and early 2000s. You gotta get up in your nose.
I'm a diva muffin.
You can't say sing it and then do a solo, you idiot.
But it's not a meme. Man
like-
up. Eat a crust. Why do
good.
you make the child pick the 70s songs?
That's Wings.
Oh, that's Wings.
That's Wings, you fool.
I was thinking,
Joel, no. Are you okay?
Did you hear what he just said? Yep.
and you think I'm here.
We can say sexy. Say sexy. Both of you. Say sexy right now.
Record it.